If any of you haven't been to an Albion Society before, what we try and do is bring together kind of seminal entrepreneurs who are kind of making something happen in society. And we just give them 10 minutes to tell us something interesting, and hopefully we'll all get something out of it. So we've got Simon Andrews, the man who looks like he's from advertising, in the glasses. He looks like he's from advertising because, gee, isn't he? Second up is a guy called Ram Thakkar, who has got a very cool mobile app business called TouchNote. It's kind of postcards meet mobile. Clive Dickens is third up. He's a good friend of ours, a good friend personally, and a client as well, which is always an interesting combination. He is founder of Absolute Radio, serial entrepreneur. He's pretty much, you know, one of the faces in radio, but he's also a complete geek and has done some really interesting interactive stuff along the way. Mark Curtis is a face who I think I used to look up to in some respects. He'll probably be quite surprised by that. He was a very early founder into interactive agencies, founded an agency that was bought by Razorfish. He's now a serial entrepreneur and he's doing both very interesting stuff in mobile and he's keeping his hands dirty in other stuff too. So, experienced guys, without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Simon, who's going to kind of set the scene.
You've come out 8:30 on a morning to here because obviously you recognise mobile's a pretty important thing. I'm going to try and convince you mobile is the only game in town. And hopefully the next 10 minutes, the facts I can show you will convince you it's a thing taken really seriously. So talk about the 4 P's of marketing. The way we look at the ecology is it's about devices, first of all. It's about devices because what the devices do enable everything. It's about place with location. It's about people. We integrate with Facebook. It's about the physical with barcodes. And it's about promotion. You can use all that to drive discounting. We'll use that framework to try and just put some structure to things I'm going to talk about. We think that mobile is going to go the same sort of way that online did. It's 11 years, almost to the day, since the height of the dot-com boom. The number of people online then in the world was 350 million people. Last year, we passed that figure for people on mobile with smartphones already. It's not a case of one day it's going to be colossal, it's big already. When the iPhone was launched, it didn't make any difference to mobile. This is Google searches on mobile as a surrogate for growth of advertising. iPhone didn't make a difference. 3G iPhone did. It's the broadband speed that drives the changes from there. And that huge ramp is driven by Android, BlackBerry, 3GS, etc. As the phones get faster, more people use this stuff. In the last quarter of last year, for the first time, the industry sold more smartphones than PCs. PC sales are diving. This is some Google data. 15% of all searches in the US on Google are mobile. 99% of all mobile searches are Google in the States. It's a huge share. But only 3% of mobile searches are monetized. Most brands don't have a website that really works on smartphones. So when people search for it, it doesn't really work. This is some figures from Bain talking about in Europe, this year, mobile influenced $110 billion worth of sales. I don't know if you know this, another disruption, Square. One of the guys from Twitter has launched this business. Square is this little thing you can get for free. You plug it into an iPhone, you can take credit card payments. It does $1 million a day already, 3 or 4 months after launch, signing up huge numbers of merchants. So everybody in the market in Spitalfields can now take credit cards. The example everyone wants to follow in retail is Apple. If you go to an Apple store, it's a brand cathedral. And the big thing they've done is take the tills out of the way. There's no tills, there's no barrier between you and the people taking the money. And this allows everyone to do that. So another disruptive mobile device. People find the idea of the fixed phone absolutely bemused. My kids find it amazing the phone was fastened to the wall in the hall. Find that really odd. For most people, the internet is fastened to the wall in the hall as well. And the great thing about mobile, it takes the internet out of the home, out 3 or 4 hours in the evening, maybe an hour at lunchtime, it's in your pocket the whole time. So my final chat before Jason throws something, it's time to experiment. We think you should be spending money learning what works in mobile and what doesn't. In mobile search, in mobile sites, in apps, find out what works and what doesn't work, so when this tide really changes, you're prepared for it. Thank you.
My name is Ram Thakkar. I'm CEO of a startup called TouchNote. We're 12 guys based out of a tunnel in Camden and have pretty much dedicated our work and lives to working on the content side of, and on the app side of the mobile value chain. To give you the potted history on TouchNote, Effectively, we're about postcards. So we make physical postcards from the photos they've got on their mobile phones. And actually, it is that simple. This, to me, the most amusing and slightly scary thing about our business is that I've explained it to my grandmother, and she's provided tips and advice on the business. And actually, in mobile, that's, as you probably all know better than I do, that's just really not very common. There's an example on the new Sony Ericsson phone that's about to come out. This is their Sony Ericsson PlayStation phone. It's known as the Xperia Play. We're going to be so integrated that actually once you've taken a photo, and on an Android device, the only thing you can do is share that photo to do something with it. We are the first icon that says share as postcard. So for us, as you can probably guess, we're kind of quite pleased with that and sometimes feel quite smug. But this is retail. This is a space on the phone that we want. This is coveted real estate. Maybe the manufacturers and operators haven't quite figured that out, but that leaves an opportunity for companies like us who have thought about it. We want to be somewhere in front of consumers. If this was Tesco's, I would pay for it. This isn't quite yes Tesco's. You guys will be thinking like that in a few years. So for now, how can I come up to you, Mr. Sony Ericsson in this case, and say, we want to be a part of your lives? And the only way they will do that is if we make them look good. And for us, it came down to bringing three things. Fanatically happy customers, right? And it really is the emphasis on people that are obsessing about our product, our app. Second thing we bring to that is a tangible and emotional way to show off the hardware. So these guys are coming out with 15 megapixel cameras now on their phones. I'm like, that's a really cool thing for you to be selling. But really, what do you do with that? We come along and offer a nice way to show that off. And oh, look, here's a photo of my little son Bob at the beach. Dear Granny, here, girlfriend, it was so nice to hang out with you. And it's quite powerful. And then the final one is money. In these sort of partnerships, we offer a revenue share. Because quite honestly, if we can come in and say, hey, would you like some money for that placement? It's a pretty convincing story. But unless you understand the nature of the value chain, unless you understand where you can derive revenue, there's no chance that most of these businesses will derive any sense of real shareholder value unless they're on million, maybe 2 million, maybe 5 million phones. And the way that these guys have currently set up their business models and currently set up their distribution plans, they've got no chance at all of doing it. Which also smells of opportunity for the guys in here that can think about proposition, can think about how do we actually take that proposition and use channels to market to get to our consumers. That's really interesting.
Good morning, thanks for your time. We're from a business called Absolute Radio, and radio is one of the oldest forms of advertising. So what is a radio station doing in the mobile context? Well, from our perspective, the growth in mobile is just far faster than any other form of technology we've seen in the last couple of years. So from a radio perspective, how do we feel that we can play a role in mobile? Well, we want to be one of those brands that can take advantage of the mobile advertising economy. Social, local, and mobile was really the thing that radio had going for itself, from the UK in the sort of 70s and 80s and before that in the States. We were a very social medium, a lot about interactivity, a lot of shared experience on the radio, particularly with its user engagement. Local was very much the driver of our economy, and the mobility of radio, the fact that so much radio listening happens outside of the home, is one of the key things that drives it. So if radio is solo-mo, then why can't radio take an active role in the mobile economy? All of this measurement of mobile, whether it's desktop, mobile devices, tablets, and actual smartphones themselves, allow us to really measure engagement. Because so much of our advertising business model at the moment is based on sample-based estimates. Sample-based estimate research is dead. Google doesn't estimate anything. Google knows. Apple know the engagement. Facebook know. And media owners, we need to know. We need to actually get real measurement, real accountability. So every time I can convert someone into an IP connection, whether it's desktop or mobile, I know how much engagement how much time people are spending with our brand and that level of engagement. 11.4 million hours of content were consumed in the month of January through our devices, whether that's desktop or mobile. In an analog world, in a broadcast world, FM, AM, and DAB, Radio 1 and Radio 2 are 5 times bigger than us. In an IP and mobile world, we're 40 to 50% bigger than them. And this is the BBC, which are pretty good at technology as well. We are an iAd publisher. iAd for us as a publisher is by far the most successful revenue generator as a publisher. And it's interesting when I see some of the negativity that might come with iAd, and partly I believe because Apple refused to go on record about commenting about their success with publishers or their success with advertisers. In the space of vacuum, then people will just write copy. For us at the moment, AdMob is really ineffective. It's very ineffective as a marketing platform, and it's incredibly ineffective as a publisher. I don't know what the problem is. It may be that we haven't nailed the creative execution very well, but normally Google get things right. So I think it's a massive challenge for them. I talked to other brands and they talked to me about AdMob being a really interesting experience and very cheap. But because we're really measuring engagement to our brand right down to becoming a real digital advocate and a click journey that goes into streaming, then really the measure of success for AdMob at the moment is very poor. And it's very early days for that sort of tertiary mobile network as well.
So just a brief introduction. I got into digital in 93, 94 and built a company with a guy called Mike Beeston in London, which was called CHBI, which was one of the first kind of web build internet agencies. And we sold that to Razorfish in 1998 and then went on a kind of wonderful roller coaster ride through the dot-com era with Razorfish. In 2001, we left Razorfish and we set up a company called Fjord. Fjord is a now 140-person shop in 5 countries doing service design for customers like Telefonica and the BBC and Nokia and the NFL in America and does some really amazing work. I'm still on the board there, but I don't spend very much time there because in 2005 we had one of those ideas which then span out of control into its own business, which was called Flirtomatic. And the idea started because we were asking ourselves a question, which was actually what we were trying to do. Some of you who are in agency land will appreciate this story, I suspect. We were trying to get inside Nokia's underpants because we really, really wanted Nokia business. And we met this guy there, and he said, go away and come back in a month's time and impress me by showing me 5 big ideas about the future of mobile. So we went away and we brainstormed. And when we were having the brainstorm, we were talking about dating. Dating's pretty big on the internet, and it's growing very fast at the moment. Remember, this is 2005. What will dating look like when it went mobile? And we started brainstorming. We said, well, it's going to be faster, funnier, quicker. Forget all those 200-word profiles. There's not going to be any of that. It's going to be about rapid messaging. And some wit around the table said, we're describing flirting. And we all went, whoa, there's an idea. Because we'd all flirted on mobile using text messaging. Or at least we all admitted, and most of the people in the room admitted they had. And we all thought, there's an idea. And that's where the product was born. We had the name Flirtomatic within a day. Nokia encouraged us to develop it, but didn't invest in it, but introduced us to a seed investor. And we really haven't looked back since then. We have almost 4 million users, not quite. 3.8 million to be precise. We went to 1 million in the US in less than a year, which on mobile is pretty good going. We have, I think, fabulously sticky figures for engagement. According to ComScore, our average dwell time is 25 minutes, which I think is astonishing. In fact, when my CTO told me it was 25 minutes 3 years ago, I didn't believe him. We do between 750 to 1,000 page views per customer per month. Again, that's on mobile, not on the web. It was when I saw those numbers that I really, really believed that mobile was going to be bigger than the PC internet. One of the big things I'm beginning to see is that cross-platform is absolutely essential. You know, things like integration into Facebook are now completely critical, and being on the web as well as on mobile is completely critical. There will be businesses that are able to have, undoubtedly, a glorious, successful business for a while just being mobile apps. But that wouldn't be a strategy I would persist in. I think you have to go across all platforms. It's still much, much easier to get vast numbers of users on the web than it is on mobile. So anybody really familiar with mobile will know that 4 million users that we have is actually a pretty good number. That's pretty respectable. On the web, it's crap. It's just nothing. And when you go and talk to VCs and you tell them you've got 4 million users on the mobile, they go, that's not very much. So it becomes very difficult to raise money off the back of that kind of thing. And eventually the story begins to come back to you that there are a lot of users out there who are much easier to acquire on the web than they are on mobile. It is astonishingly hard to get mobile distribution, and everyone sees it. One of the things not many people know, it's a kind of dirty secret of mobile, is viral is impossibly difficult. And don't take just my word for it. Chatting with the head of mobile at Facebook recently, he said, viral simply has not worked for us.